The heavy wooden doors of the courtroom groaned as they swung open, and the echo of footsteps filled the chamber. Inside, the air felt thick, charged with tension. Journalists scribbled notes while cameras clicked, each flash a reminder that this was not an ordinary trial. The woman being led into the room wore chains around her wrists, the metal digging into her skin, but her chin remained high. Her name was Maya Thompson, a black woman in her early 30s, and though she looked exhausted from weeks of hearings, there was a fire in her eyes that refused to die out. The officers escorting her were not subtle in their disdain. One of them shoved her forward with unnecessary force, causing her to stumble. The gallery gasped, but the judge barely looked up from his notes. The man presiding, Judge Horace Kincaid, had a reputation for protecting the powerful and crushing those who dared to speak against them. Maya was accused of obstructing justice after filing complaints of corruption within the city's police department, but everyone in that courtroom knew the truth. She had evidence that could bring half the department crashing down. The prosecutor's table was stacked with files, while Maya sat with nothing but a folder of her own notes. She had refused a court-appointed lawyer after realizing they were more loyal to the system than to justice. Now, she represented herself. Her voice, though trembling at times, carried across the chamber with undeniable conviction. When the bailiff announced the start of the session, Maya rose slowly, every eye fixed on her. "Your Honor," she began, "this trial is not about me. This trial is about the abuse of power, the silencing of voices, and the attempt to bury the truth. I stand here today not because I committed a crime, but because I revealed one." The judge slammed his gavel. "Miss Thompson, you will speak only when spoken to. This court will not tolerate grandstanding." His voice dripped with irritation, but Maya's words had already struck a chord with the audience. At the prosecutor's signal, an officer stepped forward to testify. His uniform was polished, his badge gleaming, but as Maya cross-examined him, cracks began to show. She pointed out contradictions in his report, discrepancies between his statements and the evidence logs. The officer grew agitated, fumbling with his answers. The murmurs in the gallery grew louder. That was when it happened. As Maya turned to present a document proving that the officer had altered a timestamp, one of the cops guarding her snatched the paper from her hand and crumpled it. Maya protested, reaching to take it back, and in an instant, the officer's hand lashed out across her face. The sharp crack echoed like a gunshot in the chamber. The crowd gasped, reporters leapt to their feet, and Maya staggered, her cheek burning. For a moment, silence. Then chaos erupted. "Order!" the judge roared, pounding his gavel. But the damage was done. The sight of a police officer striking a woman inside a courtroom, in full view of the press, was burned into everyone's minds. Maya did not fall. She stood tall, blood at the corner of her lip, and locked eyes with the officer who had hit her. Her voice, raw with fury, cut through the uproar. "This is the face of justice in the city. Violence against the truth." The cameras flashed like lightning. The world outside would see this. And though the judge tried to regain control, Maya had already shifted the balance of power. The video spread like wildfire. Within hours, clips of Maya being struck in court were broadcast across every major network. Protests flared outside the courthouse, and slogans demanding accountability rang through the streets. The city, long simmering with distrust, was now boiling over. Inside the courtroom, the pressure was unbearable. The next day, Maya arrived with a bruise on her face, but a stronger resolve. She carried with her a slim folder, the last remnants of her evidence, carefully hidden away until now. As the trial resumed, she requested permission to call a surprise witness. The prosecutor objected furiously, but the noise from the gallery, journalists, activists, even ordinary citizens who had forced their way inside, made it impossible for the judge to ignore. A man in plain clothes stepped forward. He was nervous, glancing around as if expecting to be dragged away at any second. Maya introduced him, Detective Samuel Briggs, once part of the same police unit that had been accused of corruption. He had resigned quietly months earlier, disappearing from the public eye. Now, he stood in the witness box, hands shaking. Through halting words, Briggs confirmed everything Maya had claimed. He revealed falsified reports, hidden evidence, illegal raids, and money laundering schemes that tied high-ranking officers to criminal organizations. The courtroom gasped with every revelation. The prosecutor tried to object, but Briggs produced copies of documents, photos, and recordings he had kept as insurance. Maya paced slowly before the jury. "This is not just about me," she declared. "This is about a system built on intimidation, lies, and brutality. They tried to silence me, but how many others have they already silenced? How many voices buried because no one dared to stand here and speak?" The judge shifted uneasily in his seat. His authority was crumbling, and for the first time, he looked afraid. But still, he tried to intervene. "This court is not a stage for political theatrics," he barked. Maya turned to him, eyes blazing. "No, Your Honor. This court is supposed to be the stage for truth. And the truth is finally being heard." The gallery erupted in applause, and the judge threatened to clear the room, but the energy was unstoppable. The world was watching. By the end of the day, the prosecution's case was in shambles. Evidence that once seemed damning against Maya now appeared manipulated. Witnesses were revealed to have been coerced. Every stone she overturned revealed another layer of rot. The judge recessed the trial, his hands trembling as he banged the gavel. That night, Maya sat in her holding cell. Exhausted but unbroken, she thought of her mother, who had taught her never to bow to injustice, and of the countless people who now saw her as a symbol of resistance. She whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, everything changes." The final day of the trial dawned heavy with expectation. The courthouse steps were packed with protesters holding signs that read "Justice for Maya" and "End Corruption Now." Inside, the air buzzed with anticipation. Maya walked into the courtroom without chains this time, her wrists free, her steps steady. The prosecution made one last desperate attempt to discredit her, but it was clear their case had collapsed. Maya presented the final piece of evidence, a recording of Judge Kincaid himself, speaking privately with officers about making an example of her. Gasps filled the chamber. The judge's face turned ashen. "This court," Maya said, holding the recorder high, "was never about justice. It was about control. And today, that control ends." The gallery exploded. Journalists shouted questions, cameras flashed, and the jury looked shaken. The judge pounded his gavel, but his voice was drowned out by the roar of the people. In the midst of the chaos, a representative from the State Bar Association, who had been observing the trial, stood and announced that Judge Kincaid was being placed under immediate suspension pending investigation. Officers approached the bench, not to guard him, but to remove him. The room fell into stunned silence as the once powerful judge was escorted out in disgrace. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the chief clerk approached Maya and gestured toward the empty seat. "Until a replacement is appointed," he said, his voice trembling, "someone must preside to conclude this hearing." Every eye turned to her. Maya hesitated, her breath catching. She had come here as the accused, humiliated, beaten, silenced. Now, she was being invited to sit where her oppressor had sat. The symbolism was undeniable. She walked to the bench, her steps echoing like thunder in the silent chamber. When she lowered herself into the judge's seat, the gavel before her, the room erupted in cheers. Reporters scrambled to capture the moment. Protesters outside shouted as the news spread. The woman who had been slapped, silenced, and dragged through the mud, was now holding the very symbol of justice. Maya lifted the gavel. "This court," she said, her voice steady, "is adjourned, but the fight for justice is only beginning." The sound of the gavel striking wood rang out like a promise that power could change hands, that truth could prevail, and that no one, no matter how oppressed, was beyond rising to the seat of justice. And as the cameras captured the moment for the world to see, Maya Thompson sat in the judge's seat, not as a victim, but as the embodiment of justice itself.